guys. So it is about just after 2 o'clock, like 10 after 2 in the afternoon, almost an evening. That's how my day's been today. It is Thursday, September 10th, and I wasn't planning on making a reading vlog of sorts for this month other than my Thirst Reread series, reading vlogs and reviews, and my next Stephen King read if I was to get to those this month. But I don't know, I'm in a bit of a weird headspace and I felt like maybe doing a vlog would be interesting. I have my first therapy appointment today, which is something I scheduled back like 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago now, I think. And I'm nervous because I don't talk about stuff very often. I don't deal into like my emotional side very often. I mean, you guys know that I like suffer from anxiety. I have a lot of days where I feel stressed out, and that stress does make me very frustrated and emotional to a sense. There's a lot of emotional stuff though from like my past and like repressed things, I think, that I've never really come to terms with, and is a big reason as to why I become very anxious and become very stressed out a lot of the time. Like a lot of things dealing with like why I get stressed out a lot of the time. Why do I put so much pressure on myself? That those kinds of things, like those things I don't talk about, like the reasons why I am what I am today. I'm not someone who really like opens up a lot in terms of why I'm feeling a certain way, or what exactly lets me be what I am. So it's hard for me to do that, but in the last like week or so, 2 weeks actually, I've been having a lot of more emotional, very deep conversations with my family and with Robert about what it is I'm looking for when it comes to therapy, and what it is I need to work on in terms of making it so that I'm able to communicate better with people. And not only that, but then how am I able to discuss these things that I need to discuss with my therapist, so that I can try to make the most out of the time that I have with them. I figured a way to offset those nervous Nelly feelings is to maybe do a bit of a reading vlog, mostly just for like the weekend, because I do have a few books I want to get through here over the course of this weekend. What I'm working on right now is I am working through The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. This is technically a reread for me because I tried listening to the audiobook of this here, I think last November, and November of 2019 was a month where for some reason I couldn't focus on very many audiobooks. Like I just couldn't get into any of them, and so I slowly have been going through some of the books that I tried listening to that month and reading them physically to see, or even listening to the audiobooks again to see if I can get the story down a little bit better. I did that with Good Omens, and I really enjoyed that book. I gave it like a 3-star because it wasn't my favorite book of all time, but I did give it that second chance and felt that I understood the story better because I was actually more focused on it. The Woman in the Window, though, I wanted to read physically because I thought for some reason like part of my issue was that the audiobook I just couldn't follow very well, and I felt like maybe reading the physical book would be a little bit better. So this is the one I'm a little bit behind on in terms of my reading schedule, because I'm supposed to finish it today in terms of my reading schedule, which I have made in my bullet journal, because as you guys may know, I am participating in the Bookopoly-thon this month, and I really wanted to try to get all the books in that Bookopoly-thon scheduled out in terms of like a page goal every day, which is about 96 pages, and I'm just a little behind on the reading right now because I haven't really been taking the time to do that. But what the plan is to spend a lot of time reading this. The book itself is not very long and the chapters fly by really quick. And then today what I want to do is also then get through like the first 40 some pages of The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. The Woman in the Window completes my challenge, which was a community chest card for Bookopoly-thon, which was to read a thriller. And then The Savage Song was my third role of the Bookopoly-thon, which was to read the first book in a series. And I think it was actually one of the books I had drawn for like my July TBR, where I had been reading a lot of books that were by LGBTQ authors, trans non-binary authors, things of that nature. Because that month in particular, I did a month where I just drew books from those categories and that was all I read in July. So this Savage Song was one of those books, and I didn't end up getting to it. I do have, like I said before, I do have my Thirst reread series involved in Bookoplathon as well. I have the next 2 books I wanted to read for that series that were my July and August picks, which are Black Blood and then also Red Dice. And then I do have the next one, which is Phantom, on my TBR for September. Like, I basically created my Bookoplathon TBR, and then I decided, hey, if I ever, get to these page goals in the day and I decide I want to read something else, I'll pick up another book that I had planned. So that's like my Stephen King read, another Thirst book, if I got through the first 2 already, my random TBR pick for August or September, my library lottery pick for the month, which I probably should get to that one soon. I also have gotten an ARC for Poems for the End of the World by Katie Wismer, which I was really excited about, so I have that. And I have several other books that I've been meaning to read over the last couple of months that I just haven't. I actually got my manuscript back. I got Katie, who actually is the author for Poems for the End of the World. She is also a freelance editor. I will leave her information down in the description for you guys. I adore her. She's one of my favorite booktubers and author tubers, basically. And so I really wanted to send off this book I've been working on for the last 6 years. You guys know my mystery novel I've been working on since I was a senior in high school. I finally got that back today. I was very, very excited to see all of Katie's comments. I read basically this little report that she gives, which gives kind of a general idea of what she thought and some different things for improvement, which was really helpful. Like, I love the fact that she took the time to really sit down and get some thoughts down about the book itself and what she thought of it. She said she really enjoyed it, and she really liked how it kind of sucked her in, because that was my big hope, was that the book that would get her to be sucked in very easily and get her to really want to continue reading it. And then she gave me some really, really great constructive criticism about ways of improvement and places where there's plot holes and where things don't make sense, which was my big thing, was because I was looking for ways to find extension in the book because I felt like it was too short. And a big reason for that is because there's so many plot holes. There's so many different things that just don't quite make sense, or things that don't quite add up in terms of what's already been given in the story. So I still have to go through the document itself, the entire manuscript itself, to find those specific moments that Katie mentions in the kind of general report that she gives. I feel a little bit better now actually talking with you guys about stuff, which, interestingly enough, so I've been doing this thing where I have this oracle card set. I've always been interested in tarot and oracle cards, and a couple weeks ago I actually bought an oracle set myself. Tarot and oracle are slightly different. For those of you who don't know, tarot cards are kind of the cards that most people are familiar with, where when you go to use them, you use like a standard 3-card spread, and oracle cards are meant to be, you pull 1 card out of the set, and it kind of gives you a general idea of the kind of thing that you're asking the question on, which the oracle cards, though, you're not really supposed to ask a very specific question. You're supposed to ask something kind of more general. And the tarot cards you can use kind of more as a specific question, and the cards will then, kind of in a sense respond to that. So for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have been pulling one every morning before I start work. And actually, funny enough, all of the cards I've pulled every single morning have either ascribed to what I'm feeling when I wake up, what I feel like I need to do for myself during that day, and or it gives me a reason to kind of go about my day in a certain way because it actually ends up being better for me. And it's so bizarre. Like, a lot of people don't really ascribe to these cards or anything like that as stuff to live by. But what's funny is that I don't know if it's because, there's some kind of effect of knowing what the card is that then affects my day. But for instance, I have this one that today I pulled. It's called Clear Aura. And each card has a certain flower and stone that is involved that basically is representative of the card. And Clear Aura is supposed to be a card that basically says find ways to kind of make yourself feel better so that the aura that surrounds you can be cleared up. Because if you've got kind of a murky aura, when you're not feeling well, the idea is that your aura can be affected by that. So it might turn tinges of gray or black or whatever, or red even. And the idea is that you find things, this card basically says to find things or do things that are going to, express some kind of joy or happiness or something to help clear up that aura and just basically make you feel better. Just basically take time to make yourself do things that are going to make you feel better. So yeah, but anyway, I need to go get some more water, which is another thing. I'm trying to drink a little bit more water in my day-to-day life. I did order food today, which was not the plan, but I was feeling crappy. Should I have done it? Probably not. That's actually one of my bad coping mechanisms, is ordering food a lot, ordering out. Not off to a good start necessarily, but I know it's one of my issues, and I know it's because I just don't have coping mechanisms right now, so it's like indulging myself in food and buying books on every second I can. Like, those are just the ways I'm trying to cope, and they're not healthy, but it's because my actual coping mechanisms are shot. Like, I've done everything I can, nothing seems to work. Food and buying books do, though, produce a bit of dopamine for me and a little bit of serotonin, even if it's for just like a little bit of time, which isn't good because that depletes very quickly, and then I feel like I have to keep ordering out more, and I keep feeling like I have to order more books or get more books or go to the bookstore more or go to Starbucks more often or whatever, and it's like I can't be satisfied with like the stuff I do have and the things that I actually have in the house kind of thing. So that's one of the issues I gotta talk about. That's guys, it is 10 to 9 in the morning on Friday. So yesterday I had my first therapy appointment, which went way better than I expected. At the end of the session, the therapist asked me to kind of tell her how it felt to go through that first session, and the word I would like to use for that is release. Truthfully, I don't know how exactly it happened, but immediately when I got in there, all of the nerves that I had over the course of the day building up kind of went away, and basically I just started talking about what's going on and kind of came to a couple realizations, a couple light bulbs kind of went off, is what the therapist said it looked like on her end. And I kind of came to grips with a couple of things that I had just been kind of pushing away, which very much lead to my anxiety. Also, if you hear all that weird noise in the background, that's the heater kicking on. We actually turned on the heat here a couple of days ago because it's starting to get kind of cold, which is very weird in early September. Usually it's still like in like the mid 70s, and it's been every morning waking up it's like less than 60 degrees, which is very strange. Usually that's like early October weather. But I'm not complaining. I like the fall. I do like the fall weather. I just don't like the transition between summer and fall because my allergies go super haywire like they're doing now. But so the appointment basically just went really well. It went a lot better than I had expected it to, because I was just so nervous the whole time of feeling like I wasn't going to be able to talk. I didn't feel like I was going to be very comfortable. I was just very nervous about the whole thing, but she made it really easy for me to just talk. And in moments where I was actually starting to feel something, like I was starting to cry and I could feel myself opening up, there were moments where she had me take a minute to do some mindfulness exercises, mostly to be aware of where my body is and kind of just making it known that like the emotions I'm feeling need to be felt, and to be mindful of like the space I'm in, and then also be mindful of where I'm holding tension in my body because I'm maybe trying to hold things back kind of thing, which is stuff that I've in the past really tried to do, is do those kind of mindful exercises like yoga and meditation. Those have both been very big things in my life, have been ways that I had in the past been able to cope and been able to recenter myself. But as of recently, over the last couple of months, they have been not working as well. And interestingly enough, the therapist basically said that one of the ways that like I hurt myself is because I have a hard time with my anxiety distinguishing between what is, she called story, or basically the things that my brain comes up with that are not necessarily true about situations I'm in and experiences I'm having, and what is fact, and that's like what's really happening. So for instance, like I'm an empathic person, so I can usually tell when someone is not feeling their best, and I'm usually someone that I'm drawn to them because I want to help. And sometimes, so if somebody was to come into the house and they didn't say hi to me kind of thing, I immediately take that as something that I might have done something wrong, or something is wrong in general, and then my brain cycles to, did I do something wrong? Did I make them upset? Did I not do something for them that they asked, kind of thing? And that's the building of the story in my head, is I build the story of the fact that they're mad at me about something because I didn't do something, or I did something they didn't like, kind of thing. And the fact of the matter is, the fact part of it could be that they're not mad at me at all, but my brain makes me think that they are, because I've been in a lot of experiences over the course of my life where a friend didn't talk to me because I did something wrong, but they didn't tell me, and then they would explode on me later on. And so that made it hard for me to think that I'm usually not the problem. So it's just one of those things where, like, it's something I have to learn to navigate, because not everything is about me, and I know that. But as someone with anxiety who's been through experiences multiple times over their life where, you know, friends don't tell you that you're the issue, or you did something to them until they explode on you, it's hard for me to not take some of those cues as possibly being something that I did or something I didn't do for that person. So afterward, though, I basically had cried and cried and cried throughout the whole thing, so I didn't get much more reading done because I was so drained. I wasn't like drained like emotionally per se, but my body just hurt, and also just because I was I've been experiencing some back issues, I think, just because I'm not sitting properly when it comes to work, and when I do, my body's like, this is not normal, so the muscles are all kind of out of whack, and I don't necessarily get up from my chair very often. I'm just get up to go to the bathroom, or get up to make my lunch, kind of thing, and that's basically about it. Otherwise, I'm stuck in this chair for like 8 hours. So I will update you guys though. So I started yesterday on page 193 and got to page 230. So I'm on Saturday, November 6th in this book. I'm on chapter 46. So I read about a little less than 40 pages yesterday, which is not awful, but it's not the best I've done, I think. I am very behind on my reading schedule. I'm supposed to be like 100 or so pages into, like 130 some pages into my other book today. So I was supposed to have finished this yesterday, and then have started my other book, but that has not happened. I also still have to read through my library lottery pick, which that's just a manga, so I probably could get through that fairly quickly. And then I do have to read the Poems for the End of the World arc, which is just a collection of poetry, so that should go by really quick, because I want to get a review out for that before October 1st when the poetry collection comes out. I pulled my oracle card for the day, which is this card. It is called Shadow Treasures. I mean, just look at this art, okay? This art for this oracle card deck is just absolutely stunning. The flower for this card is Black-Eyed Susans, which are kind of used to promote the idea of bringing light to dark situations, or like to inspire like positivity as opposed to like negativity, kind of thing. And then golden citrine, I think, is the stone, which also kind of does the same thing, kind of just wards off some negative energy and like helps to promote bringing more positive energy in. And the description of the card basically says, you know, like you might be having some kind of like shadows clouding your life, or whatever it is, like clouding your aura. So do things to kind of like bring some light into it, whether that's meditating as if like you have a golden light on yourself, or, you know, whatever it is, like doing something for yourself. A lot of these cards basically do dictate, you know, how like, you know, bring positivity to your life, bring good energy into it because you might be dealing with something, or, you know, taking rest days to, you know, promote that good energy, basically, because everything in like the oracle and tarot cards is all about like, you know, energy, and Wicca in general is all about, you know, going in with good intentions, depending on what kind of magic that you're planning on doing, if you practice witchcraft, because not all Wiccans practice witchcraft, but for those that do, a lot of it is based in intention, and the intention behind your magic does affect how that is sent out into the world, and then also how we receive it. And that's very true to life in general. Like if you put out, you know, more positive thoughts, more positive vibes kind of thing, you are more likely to attract other people that are like that. And similarly, if you do put out kind of more negative vibes, a little bit more negative energy kind of thing, you are more likely to have people move away from you because they don't want to be a part of that negative space. It's not so much about toxic positivity by any means, because obviously things ebb and flow, but the general idea is that if you want to have a little bit more of a positive experience in your life, to try to remain a little bit more on the positive side of things. But if you're just in a space where you can't be positive, then don't force it, because forcing positivity is kind of going into that idea of toxic positivity, where you could literally be, your skin could literally be melting off, and you would still be like, no, this is fine, this is all good, it's not a bad thing, when in reality it's actually a really bad thing. So I like these cards because they kind of just give me an idea of like how I should be going about my day. I always, every morning, ask the question when I pull a card of what do I need to know about the day to be able to go through the day. And a lot of them basically go along the same lines of, you're struggling right now, try to find ways to bring a little bit more positivity to your life to make you feel better, because I've been sitting in a lot of negative energy lately. I've been having a lot of negative thoughts and negative cycles. So it's a constant reminder to do things for myself that bring positivity, which may even include something like just cleaning up the house a little bit, which usually does make me feel better. I feel like if I get rid of like the clutter every now and then, or I sweep the kitchen floor, I wipe down the counter, something like that, I do feel better because the house is a little bit cleaner. It could also be, just sitting and reading all day, which I kind of feel like that's what I want to do today. Is I just want to sit and read all day after I get done with work and not really do anything. So I might do that. It might be, taking a bath, like finding little things to like be considered self-care, whether that's putting your mind at ease by getting a certain task done that you've been putting off for a little while, or doing something that does increase kind of like that dopamine or serotonin, doing something you actually enjoy, whether that's reading, writing, painting, anything like that. That's kind of what the cards I've been getting the last several weeks have kind of reminded me, is that right now I'm struggling, I'm having all these negative energies, so do things that are going to kind of not necessarily ward them off, but give me a little bit of a boost to where I can fight off that negative energy a little easier over the course of the day. And some days it works, some days it doesn't. It really just depends on the day. I just like knowing that these cards are kind of like that reinforcement in my mind to continue with that trend. Hi guys, it is now after 9 o'clock, I think, going on like 9:10, maybe 9:15 in the evening, and I've just finished The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Holy crap, I have read through over half of this book, I think, today. I started on page 229-ish, and the book is 496 pages, so I have read like 270 some pages, nearly like 280 pages, I think, today already. And I'm not quite done yet because I do want to get through my next book on my Bookopolis on TBR. But The Woman in the Window, I ended up giving like a 4 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed a lot of like the story itself. The pacing was fairly slow, which I didn't mind actually. I liked the little bit of the slower paceness to it because it's more of a mystery as opposed to a thriller kind of thing. The ending really kind of gets more into the thrillery aspects, but it's more of kind of a mystery in the sense of like we're finding things out as the character does, things of that nature. And I did have a couple issues though with, I think, the overall ending in general, and I think with the main character in some instances, I felt like some of the choices could have been different. I felt like that the way that AJ Finn kind of had written off some of the explanations for why people thought she was crazy, you know, some of the things that were done in terms of the mental health, I think were not as nice as I had wanted them to be, but I think it was still overall a really good story. I did enjoy it. I was surprised by the end of it in terms of who was really the bad guy going on in the story, and I really did like the overall kind of thought process that went behind it. I just felt like the overall ending was not necessarily what I expected it to be, in the sense that it wasn't what I would have wanted given what the story was going for, kind of thing. But to give you guys a little bit of a synopsis on this one, this is about a woman who is a child psychologist, and she's agoraphobic because of an accident that essentially happened about a year prior that involved her husband and her daughter and herself. And it's not clear as to what exactly happened. You start to learn more so in like the second half of the book that, you know, what exactly happened to lead Anna to become agoraphobic and what exactly led up to the accident that she, her husband, and her daughter were in, things of that nature, and why she has become like an alcoholic and a massive pill addicted individual kind of thing. There are massive trigger warnings here I do want to go into though, because there's a lot of stuff that delves into like addiction and abuse of substances, mental health, things of that nature. So pill addiction and alcohol addiction are very prevalent in this story. Agoraphobia is a very prevalent, that's the main character's mental disease. So that is something to be aware of. There is a lot of also suicidal ideation toward, like, I'd say about 3/4 of the way through the book. It's something that is kind of because of everything that's happened, this character ends up wanting to kill themselves. A lot of things regarding just in general mental health and possible, you know, situations that the individual is not clearly able to understand what's fact and what's fiction kind of thing. So go into that. This is a very heavy book. This is not something to be taken lightly. This is very much a book centered around a very troubled woman, very troubled individual who gets involved in something kind of nefarious, because the story basically is that there is this woman, the main character, who's agoraphobic, all these things, and she has a new set of neighbors that move down the street from her. She meets the son, who seems to be a pretty good kid, and then later meets the mother and has a good time with her, all these things, whatever, and then witnesses that woman actually get murdered. And unfortunately, though, nobody seems to believe her when it comes to her telling what happened, and it turns out that the woman she thought was the mother and wife in this family is possibly not. There's this other woman who the main character thinks may be an imposter of sorts, and so the whole story is her trying to piece together what exactly happened and what exactly happened to the woman she had met, and trying to figure out, is everything that's happening to her really happening, or is it a product of her own problems? Because like I said, she's an alcoholic and a pill addicted individual, so there's some weirdness going around with the idea that maybe she had hallucinated, maybe she saw something she didn't, because she was alcohol and drug infused at the time. So that's kind of the general story I will give to you. There's a little bit more to it than that. There's a lot going into the main character's past specifically. A few things I really didn't care about in the book. There is one scene that I feel like was absolutely unnecessary now kind of thinking back on it, because there's a character that's involved in the story that does play a small role in like understanding the whole scope of the story, but she sleeps with him at one point, and there was absolutely no point to her sleeping with him. It was just something that happened, and they never spoke about it. They never went back to that, and it just, there just seemed to be no point to her having that kind of like even just a one night stand kind of thing. Like there was there was no reason, there was no sense to that, because of the fact that the main character is agoraphobic, so she's a little weird with some new people, and it just was very, very bizarre. Like I said, the overall ending was not what I had really thought it was going to be, considering the way that the story had built, but the reveal at the end was surprising. I did like seeing who the bad guy really was, but I guess the overall ending was a little quick for me, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more dived into it, as opposed to being really more so told than showed what happened, because I felt like the very end of the book was very much just, okay, here's a quick list of everything that happened after the climax. There you go, that's the end. Overall, not really that bad. It was actually really enjoyable. Like I said, the pacing is very slow. So go into this book with that in mind, because this is a mystery. This is not so much a thriller until towards the end of the book, because I didn't really find a lot of thrilling aspects until we hit the climax of the story. I felt that the story was more so slogging through information and trying to piece together what exactly happened, therefore leading it to me to be more of a mystery as opposed to a thriller. So that completes my second rule now for Bookoplathon. That is awesome. That makes me really happy. I am still a little behind schedule. I was supposed to finish this yesterday and then get my next book started, which the next book that I have is The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. This is for my third role for Bookoplathon, which is to read the first book in the series. So today I'm supposed to get to, I want to say somewhere like between 140 to 150 pages through the book, which I think is fairly feasible either tonight or tomorrow. I'm actually waiting for Robert to finish getting ready to head off to work right now. So I think once I send him off to work, I'm going to get started with this, which I didn't even realize this is an autographed copy. I don't think I've ever noticed that sticker on there before, but there it is. There's her signature. That's so cool. Now, I don't really know much about this one. I know it's supposed to be some kind of fantasy involving a male and female character, and there is something about, I think the guy's a demon or some kind of monster. My parents are going to be here tomorrow, so I think tomorrow morning I can get through more of this, though, before they get here. I do have to clean up the house a little bit before they do, but I think it'll just be, I wake up, clean the house really quick, and then dive into this until they get here. Good morning, guys. It is Sunday, so I didn't end up updating you really at all yesterday because after my parents left, I didn't do any reading. I wasn't feeling super well over the course of the day. I just kind of got like a headache because of impending rain that's coming in, so didn't really do much reading after my parents left, which was like around 6 o'clock. I kind of laid down, took a nap for a while, and then was up until probably about 11 o'clock and then went to bed. So yeah, so right now I'm on page 83 of The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. I like it so far. It's not wowing me by any means at the moment, so it's kind of just, you know, iffy, but I like the story enough. I'm interested to see kind of how the whole thing plays out, because basically you have two main characters, one who's named Kate Harker. She is the daughter of basically, like, I think they call him like the governor of the northern part of Verity City, and they are basically in a war with the monsters that are involved in this world. Like, basically this is kind of set in the future-esque kind of thing, because there are monsters involved, and they haven't been around, I think, for nearly as long as the humans. But Kate is kind of like in a position where, like, for most of her life, she basically got herself expelled from a bunch of different schools in order to get attention from her dad, because years before, when her mother, I think, either was banished or died or something like that, Kate was basically pushed away from her father. Her dad didn't really want anything to do with her, and though because she has basically been expelled from 6 different schools in the last 5 years, her dad finally gives in to what she wants and brings her back to Verity City, and now she basically has to start up in this new school. Then there's this other character, August, who is what's called a Sunai, which is a type of monster where they use magic to essentially kill people and take their souls, and he has 418 tally marks basically tattooed on his body, representing the amount of souls he's taken. He is basically part of a resistance group with the monsters that are basically trying to overrule the humans. Now, there's been this kind of truce of sorts for the last like 6 years, but nobody really thinks that that's going to last, or at least it's not going to last for much longer. So August's family decide to send him in as kind of a spy of sorts to spy on Kate, because they think they can use her as leverage now that she is back and around, and they think that she has some kind of influence over her father, which I don't think is going to be the case. I think this is going to be kind of one of those things where Kate's going to actually join the monsters, and so I'm thinking it's going to be a little predictable is basically what I'm saying. So it's not bad by any means. I just don't think I'm like as invested in it as I wanted to be. It's just, you know, hasn't gripped me as of yet, basically, almost 100 pages in, but that's fine. It's whatever. We haven't really got to the point where August and Kate like really get to know each other. They've already met at this point, but they haven't really got to know each other yet. So I'm thinking that as they get to know each other, that's when things are going to kind of be more gripping. So that's kind of the thing. Also, August is like trying to not use his powers for some reason. I think it's because he hates the fact that he has them in the first place. I think he kind of resents the fact of being a Sunai, because in the monster world, there are 3 different types of monsters. There's Sunai, like I said, who basically use music to lure the souls to them, and then they eat the souls. There are Korsai, which are basically like demons. They basically just kind of like, they have like sharp talons and claws, and they're like actual monsters. And then there's another group called the Malkai, which they are kind of like, I think vampires is kind of the way that they're described, is like they're like vampires, but they're not vampires, because they are able to go out into the sun and have no issues. They don't have to be on like a lunar schedule like your typical vampire would have to be. So this morning, though, I went out and got some coffee at Tim Hortons. I was going to go to Starbucks, but I really wanted to get donuts too, and I didn't want to have to go all the way out to Starbucks and then come all the way back to get Tim Hortons because they're basically on the other side of town. And also, if I went to the Starbucks that I would normally go to, which is inside of Barnes & Noble, I would be really tempted to go and buy a bunch more books, and I did not want to do that because that is one of my bad coping mechanisms, is I go and I buy useless stuff, or not useless, but I go and buy food a lot of time that's not needed, or I go off and buy a bunch of books that I don't necessarily need to buy right at that moment. So today was an exception, though. I did get coffee because I was going to go get donuts because Robert and I were really wanting donuts for this morning. I'm going to pull my oracle card for the morning and then get started on the Savage Song. My goal for today is to get to page 346, which is not quite the end of the book. You still have like a little bit more right here, but that's the goal. And if I can get through this one today, I do want to get through a couple shorter books that I need to get done for this month. One is my library lottery pick, which is the manga Card Master, I think. I'll leave a picture here of it. This was my library lottery pick, which was to read an adult graphic novel with the last name starting with Y, I think. So there was only one book in the entirety of Overdrive that fit this, and this was it. And then I also want to read an arc of a poetry collection I received from Katie, who was my editor. I talked about it earlier this week, where I wanted to read her poetry collection, Poems for the End of the World. And because those are kind of shorter, I think I can probably get them both done today if I really wanted to. So yeah, that's going to be the plan for once I get this Savage Song done. I plan on reading this pretty much the rest of the day. It's now like I think just after 11 o'clock in the morning. So I think I'm going to spend the day doing this, and then I'll probably get dinner started, which dinner is going to take a while because I'm making my first shepherd's pie, which is going to be interesting. I've never made it before, but it's a recipe that we had for this week for our HelloFresh stuff. I guess I'll just pull my oracle card with you guys right now because I don't see why I can't, not doing anything else right now. I was just going to sit here, eat my donut, drink my coffee, and start my book. So I guess I'll just pull my oracle card for the day with you guys right now. So I like to just kind of shuffle through them like several times, just kind of doing this because I can't shuffle worth a crap, and I also don't want to bend these cards like the typical like shuffling thing where it's like you have the 2 piles and like you bend them and do that. I don't want to bend these cards because they actually like are really, really nice cards, and I don't want to like ruin them. So I just do kind of this. I just like shuffle where it's like boop, 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 and then kind of just bring them together kind of like that. So I just do this like several times until I feel like I shuffle them enough, and I try not to look at the cards in the bottom because I want to like keep myself really surprised for what's going on. So okay, so the card I get for today is Clarity. For this one, the book says that peppermint is involved with this, the peppermint plant, which is I think what all these little like things down here in the grass are. And it says it clears the mind, encourages communication between both individuals and groups, and enhances perception. And then the stone that is kind of in the middle of this trifecta kind of thing here is fluorite, which repairs and restructures broken systems. So clarity, the card clarity, requires the removal of unnecessary thoughts combined with enhanced perception. Clear your mind of wounds and biases and open to the idea of seeing new connections and fresh ways of thinking. The result will be the ability to make what feels like genius level decisions, no matter how apparently complex the situation. So basically it's a card that's like, hey, some crap's going down. You need to be like, have a clear head with it, and you need to be able to understand like what's going on in the situation. It could be complex, it could be a little bit more simple, but you have to like actually clear your mind kind of thing. So a lot of cards like this kind of focus on the idea of like meditation, or focus on the idea of like basically like making it so that you have a clear mind and a clear head so that you can focus on what's really there in the moment, which is something I struggle with. What's actually cool too is this is the card that is the main art on the box. So this is the second time I think I've pulled this card out of the entire deck. There are a couple I've pulled more than twice, and I have no issue with it. It's not like a bad thing, like I said, because I think it just reinforces an idea that I might already be thinking about. So I think it's really fun. Plus it just kind of gives me a nice little goal for the day, which is to think of like, finding time to clear my head, like do some meditating or some yoga or something like that. Hi guys, so it is, I think, going on like 3:45 in the afternoon right now, and I have had the best reading day. It has been a wonderful day, and I've basically been almost nonstop reading since about 11 o'clock this morning, and I've made so much progress. First off, I have gotten to my page goal for the Savage Song for today, which is on page 346. I think I have less than 100 pages left of this because I'm supposed to finish this tomorrow and then get a massive chunk of the way through my next book, which is Black Blood. So I'll be doing another reading vlog here after this one for that, as it's part of my Thirst reread series. But my thoughts on this are still kind of, underwhelming. I think it's in general a really good story. I like the idea of the world, and I also like that there's not really much of a romance between these characters in this book. I think that people said, though, at least in the second book, there's supposed to be more romantic kind of things. But I really enjoyed that there's not really one with these characters, because that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is them kind of banding together when things start to go really downhill for both sides of this war that's kind of been slowly going on over the course of the book. And I like it. It's not necessarily like the greatest thing in the world, so I'm kind of like underwhelmed by it in some ways, but I like it enough to where I know that by the time I finish this, I'm going to want to go pick up Our Dark Duet, which is the second book in the series. Then I did read part of Cardmaster by Hana Yakou. That is the manga I ended up getting as my library lottery pick, and I kid you not, like 20 pages in, I DNF'd it because I feel like I just don't understand manga, like in the formatting of it with like breaks between parts, because I just got very lost. All I know is that there was some guy who's a tarot card reader, and there's some people that are looking for this book that his like Earl, the guy that he works for, basically knows about, but the pacing of the story was really strange. Like there wasn't any certain like hard lines between different points of the story of like who was involved. Like everything just kind of was mushed together. I don't know if that's necessarily what happens in all manga. At least I feel like in graphic novels, like with Monstrous for instance, there's a very hard line with kind of the ending of one scene going into the next between sets of characters and different kinds of people. I felt like with the way this manga was set up, there was no hard line. It was like people would be talking, and then in the middle of their sentence it would go into a whole new set of characters, and it just was really weird. So DNF that, did not want to deal with that. Then, though, I read the entirety of the arc I had for Poems for the End of the World by Katie Wismer, and I ended up rating it a 4 out of 5 stars. I have this weird thing with, I think, modern poetry, where the style is not something I'm super used to, because I don't read poetry very often, but I feel like poets like Ruby Kaur and Amanda Lovelace, like I like the work, I like a lot of the poems that are involved in their collections, but the style is not necessarily always the thing I like. I don't not necessarily always like the contemporary style, which is fine, whatever. The only other personal issue I had with it, and it really was just a matter of
how I would have set up the poem collection as opposed to what Katie did. Some of the poems she had, which they were great all by themselves, but the way that it kind of all flowed didn't necessarily tell a story like I thought it was going to, even if it was just a personal story of sorts. Like there was a lot of poems talking about like toxic and abusive relationships, and you'd have like 5 or 6 that'd be in a row, and then you'd have a couple poems talking about something else, and then you go back to the toxic one, which I felt like was fine, but I personally, how I would set it up is I would have it set up where like you'd have all poems relating to one particular topic all together, then move on to another topic with all these different poems, and maybe even have callbacks to the earlier poems. But that's again a personal thing. It's something that I would have done differently, but it's Katie's book, so I'm not going to tell her it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong what she did, just not how I would have done it. But I really enjoyed it. I was really happy to get a e-arc of this before it gets released. So if you are interested in it, go check it out. It is going to be coming out on October 1st of 2020. It's very exciting. It's nearly here for her, so I'm really excited for her. And truthfully, the poems are really great. There are a lot of trigger warnings though that are placed in the very beginning of the collection for things like I said, toxic and abusive relationships, eating disorders, chronic illness, things like that, and kind of just general anxiety, I think too. Like I said, there's a whole list of trigger warnings that she lists in the very beginning of the collection before you go into it. So if you're okay with that stuff, have fun with it, but do keep in mind that these poems are very raw. They are very hard hitting. Like I highlighted so many poems that I felt like I was really connected to because I understand like what it's like to feel generally anxious all the time and feeling like you can't do anything about it. And then although I've never been in a toxic or abusive relationship, the poems that talk about like all the pain and suffering that she had gone through were poems that like really hit me in places I didn't realize like I had. Like it was really, really interesting to see the kind of emotional reactions I had to those kinds of poems, despite never having been in those kind of situations myself. So definitely recommend, especially if you're a Rupi Kaur or Amanda Lovelace fan, because it's very reminiscent style-wise of those two poets. So if you like those, I think you're going to really like Katie's work because it's very reminiscent of them without being like a carbon copy. Like just I think the style and the writing that Katie uses is similar to what both of those poets do. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been a pretty productive weekend, basically. I know I started this on Thursday as part of my weekend reading vlog, but that's exciting. I haven't been able to like have this good of a reading like hit for a long time. I feel like for a while I was in a reading slump, and recently I feel like I've been getting back into it, so that makes me very, very happy. I will be filming here this week now my reread series vlog and reviews for 2 books for the Thirst series. 2 of my Bookoplathon prompts for this month included my Thirst reread, so I'm going to be reading both Black Blood and Red Dice here this week, which are books 2 and 3 in the Thirst series. I'm interested to see how these are going to go because I rated The Last Vampire, the first book, 2 out of 5 stars. And it was really disappointing. So I am hoping that things are going to get better as the stories go on, but I have a real distinct feeling that this is just going to be a reread series. It's going to be nothing but negativity, and it may result in me unhauling the series. I don't know. I'm really nervous about how that's going to go. So you'll have to see though in those 2 videos. I'm going to be doing a separate video for Black Blood and a separate video for Red Dice. And if I have time this month, I also will be getting to the September read, which is Phantom, which is in my second compendium of the Thirst books. It's book 4. So if I have time, I will be getting that started, and then if I do start Night Shift tonight, I may even get started on that reading vlog because I wanted to do another reading vlog review for Night Shift like I did for The Stand. I might be doing a lot of filming here in the next week depending on how things go. So I don't know, we'll have to see. But anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!